going on, guys? It is MurderInc here, back with another Raid Shadow Legends video, and I am revisiting a topic that I personally love doing. I don't like repeating things like top 5 champions of this faction, that faction, all that stuff. However, it's been about a year, like I said, and I had so much fun the first time. Things have changed a little bit, so I do want to talk about the hardest hitting champions in Raid Shadow Legends. We're going to be talking about strictly AOE today, which is Area of Effect, if you're not familiar with that term. And I think you're going to be pretty surprised as to who the hardest hitting champions are for a raid. So the first question everyone's going to ask, respectively, is going to be, Murder, hardest hitting how? How did you figure this out? This is what it assumes. Everyone's attack is going to be the same. Everyone's crit damage is going to be the same, 100% crit rate on everyone. And you're fighting the same target with the same defense, the same whatever. All conditions are the same. The only thing that's going to affect this to determine who the winner is going to be their multiplier from their kit and any conditional effect that is possible. So that's the big hint there. Conditional is going to be the top damage dealers in this game. And of course, I do want to shout out Infinite, the one, the only, really smart guy. He plots all of this stuff out on spreadsheets because he's a huge arena nerd, kind of like I'm a raid nerd. So he laid this out really well for me. And pretty much everyone's bracketed in, I want to say they're bracketed in 2. Now there's really 3. I don't want to go to 3 because that's too many champions for a video. So we are going to bracket this in 2. And it looks like, hold on, Infinite, you're a good guy, but I see this word here. It starts with a T, ends with a IER. Does this say tier 1? I wasn't made aware of this until we started filming. All right, you know what? We're going to call this Group 1 for the lack of a better word, literally. Okay, so Group 1. Now, before I do this, what I want you guys to do, head to the comment section. If you don't want to comment, if you don't want to be hands-on with this, that's fine. But give me your pick for the 3 hardest hitting AOE damage dealers, and I guarantee you are going to be shocked at who I'm about to tell you are the factually, based on the numbers, hardest hitting in this game. So do that really quick, pause the video, do whatever you have to do, stretch, think about it. Don't take too long though, because we don't want to make this video forever. So with that being said, the hardest hitting champions, starting with the first one, in the first grouping and bracket of this list is going to be Ruelle. Now let's all think about Ruelle. He was not the most recent fusion, but a rather recent fusion, and a lot of people who have been playing for a long time will understand that the Hex debuff was pretty much a game changer when it came into the game. It's still hard to use. Don't get me wrong, this isn't going to be the hardest hitting champions that are extremely easy to use. You just plug and play. There's a lot of conditional setup with all of these champions, which you probably already know if you do know Ruelle's kit. He has to have that Hex debuff already on the targets before he hits them for a second time, applying his insane damage. So with that being said, in Group 1, we do have Ruelle coming in hot in that first grouping of champions that are well above the second grouping of champions. Now, the second champion in the first group here is going to be, can you guys guess, based on the first one, Thea, the Tomb Angel. Thea, once again, a champion that scales off of that Hex debuff. If you've ever faced the Minotaur, you know if you let him go for too long, he applies Hex and he does a ton of damage to you, which is why when you see Thea in these dragon runs, her damage is incredible. Absolutely incredible. You do need, hopefully down the line, I'm hoping there's going to be an easier champion that applies an AOE Hex debuff where there's not so much setup. Like if there was a defense down, weaken, and Hex, that would be one of the greatest additions to this game. A bit overpowered if they do it. Hopefully it's kind of an easier fragment fusion that they do apply to the game so players don't have to spend tons of money to get it. Yeah, right. But that's kind of what I'm hoping for. It would be much easier to showcase these champions. I'm just picturing right now using a champion that applied defense down, weaken, Hex. Then you can have someone like a Battle, Gerp Tuck in that same team. You can have an attack aura, leader for dungeons, and finally Thea the Tomb Angel. I'm pretty sure she would do about 700,000 damage AOE with savage gear, whatever you want. She is the ultimate wave clearing machine. but once again, you need someone like a Ruelle applying that hex to everyone. Thea cannot do it herself. We were pretty concerned about that when she first came out. We said, okay, this is cool, but she applies hex on her A1, and then she consumes the hex with another ability here. How is this balanced? We kind of understood that eventually they were going to release a champion to synergize with her. Do I think it's Ruelle? Not really, because it doesn't offer too much after that. So Thea is that other champion that's in the top 3 for the hardest hitting champions in this game on an AoE ability. Now, number 3 is a champion I've actually talked about. I've mentioned how hard he hits. He is a very rare condition, and it's kind of hard to replicate outside of the arena. So the last champion in this final tier of the hardest hitting champions in the game is going to be Kittis. Now, Kittis hits very hard. He has that hard hitting ability that's an AoE. However, it scales with him being low health. Now you can kind of see why this is hard to replicate in something like Clan Boss unless it's unkillable. Dungeons, how are you going to plan that out in dungeons unless you have a champion that pretty much self-afflicts harm or damage to your entire team evenly in an AoE? It's going to be really hard to showcase, but I do have a video showing that Cardinal 2.0 team with you, where Cardinal's really tanky. She has a ton of resistance. She has an immunity set, so she is not getting debuffed. Everyone dies. Kittis gets revived with low health and a full turn meter. He gets off and gets to do his damage, and the numbers you will see one-shot anyone, I don't care who it is. 100,000 HP Duchess, gone in literally 0.1 seconds. I don't care whose gear, whether it's Mac Chan, Wantamess, anyone was the best gear in this game. A properly geared Kittis with no health is going to one-shot everyone. Maybe with reaction, I would still say with reaction gear, this guy just hits so hard, it's unbelievable. So Kittis is in that 3rd slot there for the hardest hitting AoE champion in the entire game. He's a lot of fun to use if you can get it to work. Once again, there is that conditional damage that is applied, making him so strong with him being at low health. Now we're going to move on to the 2nd tier of this whole list here, and the reason why we are breaking these down in tier. Did I just say tier? Infinite, what are you doing? My life is flashing before me. What I meant to say is, now that we're moving on to the 2nd group of the hardest hitting champions in this game, I don't even know what I'm talking about. You got me confused. The reason why there's groupings here is because the first 3 champions we just talked about, they're so far ahead, it would be unfair to kind of list everyone in a scale of 1 through 10, just because of that gap here. So the start of the 2nd gap, this is where we're getting to champions that you're probably going to recognize more. The first champion we're going to talk about is someone that I've covered in the past personally. I've shown you 400,000 damage plus each target in a dragon run. It was stage 20 at the time. The champion we're talking about is Robar. So once again, another champion that has a conditional damage dealing ability, which is going to be where he needs the target to be stunned, frozen, slept. You probably don't want them frozen because they take reduced damage when they are frozen, but if you can AoE stun the champion, if you can AoE sleep the champion, Robar is going to do like actually insane damage, and he's fairly easy to build because of the extra addition he does get. So out of all the champions we've talked about so far, Robar is probably the best nuker of them all, considering what the condition required of these past champions were. Robar, you need a Kymar. Yes, Kymar is hard to get. Listen, I get it, relax. You can also use someone like an Astralon for that AoE stun, and he's going to scale very well with someone like a Robar, but Robar just does insane damage, 100% crit rate, crit damage, as much attack as you can possibly sacrifice to get as much attack as possible that you can put on this Robar. He's going to wipe any content you can think of, whether it's dungeons, faction wars, Doom Tower, arena. Once again, you do suffer from reaction gear in the arena, but overall, as far as raw damage dealing goes, Robar is going to be the headline of this 2nd grouping here. Now for our final champion of this list, the most common name that people associate with the arena, the one, the only, Trunda. Now a lot of people are saying she should be nerfed, and what the community is doing is they are kind of relating that to people who are saying she should be nerfed are because they don't have her, and Me here today, I'm going to be telling you that she doesn't need a nerf.
NANI?! お前はもう死んでいる。
Trunda's been the kind of center of a lot of, I don't want to say controversy because it's not that big of a deal. Some people were saying nerf her, then there's the whole meme of you're just saying nerf her because you don't have her, then they get her, then reaction gear comes out. Now she's not that good, but she's still pretty good, but she's also bugged with the A2, blah, blah, blah. Doesn't really matter. Trunda is in that second grouping, a little bit under Robar for the max potential. Why is Trunda so good? As you can assume, that A3 ability on its own does a lot of damage, can stun. If it doesn't stun, that conditional damage comes into play here. It hits the target twice for a stupid amount of damage. I know I've done it in my videos. Trunda gets a turn. I have this animation of a tactical nuke.
Tactical nuke incoming!
Just completely destroying everything there. Her A2 is also very strong, however that's not even in the picture right now. We're simply talking about that A3 ability that does the multi-hit. That damage combined makes her top 5 hardest hitting champion in the entire game. So based on this top 5 list, give me your feedback. Were you expecting this? Were you expecting different champions? I do plan on making a video like this for the hardest single target damage dealers in the entire game. Really cool champions, some of which I haven't mentioned already that I think you're going to be surprised about. I'm also going to do a video on the hardest A1 abilities. Now, as far as single target, I have done something like that before in the past. The A1, the hardest hitting A1 abilities, I don't think I've covered it. I've covered some of the champions. You might remember it if you've been watching me for long enough. However, I think it is pretty interesting the amount of champions that hit very hard in their A1 that a lot of players probably don't know about. So this can open up a lot of new doors for people, give them more options for a lot more content that they can do, especially with the new AI system, how we can preset the AI, turn off some abilities we don't want the champion to use, making them more likely to use an A3 or even their default skill, which is why I do want to include that. Let me know what you guys think. Were you surprised about this list for the Group 1 and Group 2? So even though we're not going to talk about it, I am going to tell you the remaining champions very quickly in case you're interested. So to recap here so we can have it all on the screen, the Group 1 is going to be Ruelle, Thea, and Kittis. The Group 2 is going to be Robar, Trunda, and the other champion I didn't mention because I wanted to keep this to 5 champions is actually, drumroll please, War Mother. War Mother scaling with those bombs is actually in the second tier for the hardest hitting AOE champion. War Mother has been a meme for such a long time. Bombs unfortunately aren't very strong right now. They're very hard to find a use for because they have to detonate, and detonation can be resisted. You have to build accuracy and attack and crit rate to conditional, all of those things. So it's kind of hard to do in practice. However, based on the raw numbers, War Mother is right behind Trunda in that second group there. Moving on to Group 3, we have Ray. Ray's an awesome champion. I've shown her farming Nightmare campaign with very minimal gear, so it's easy to see her being on this list. Followed by Saito. Saito is a very hard-hitting champion. A lot of people knew that as soon as he came out when I did showcase him, or if you were lucky enough to pull Saito, you saw he does incredible AOE damage and can deal with someone like a Duchess very, very easily. And finally, in that third group after Saito, we do have Shazar. Shazar also, like War Mother, scales off of that bomb damage, making his damage absolutely incredible as far as AOE goes. Once again, crit rate, accuracy, stacking attack. It's a bit harder in application to really apply that in-game and get the most amount of value out of it. Alright guys, that's going to conclude my video today on the hardest hitting AOE champions in the entire game. Give me your feedback, let me know what you think. Were you shocked by anybody? Were you expecting a lot of these champions? Feel free to let me know in the comments. As always guys, if you enjoy this content, don't forget to like, subscribe, turn on that notification bell so you don't miss my next video. And I'll see you all in the next upload.